Today's episode of the Quinn Spinn is brought to you from The Russell, a historic East Nashville church transformed into a one-of-a-kind boutique hotel. The Russell's mission is to give back to the Nashville community through their Rooms for Rooms program by donating a portion of each stay to local nonprofits who are helping those experiencing homelessness. And of course, we're coming out of winter, but it was a cold one out there, and it's important this time of year, any time of year, to help those in need. So good on the Russell for stepping up for the community. Visit russellnashville.com to book your experience today. And by the way, this place is gorgeous. It's got this cool retro feel, and it's got this amazing podcast studio. So you can come in whenever you're in town, record a couple episodes, and go on your merry way and explore the city. russellnashville.com to learn more. Hey now, and welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one and all, to a brand new edition of The Quinn Spinn. I'm your host, Quinn. At least that's how I'm known here on the program, and at this point, really nowhere else. And I'm back here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more for another rousing and riveting installment of the official podcast of Underground Music Collective. And you just heard Revel 9's All I've Become. At the top of the show, that has been our opening theme song here at The Quinn Spinn since the great year of 2014. And it will be until the very end of days. And I'm very excited for today's special guest. We have Stéphane Wrembel, who is a renowned guitarist. You might have heard a song of his in this Woody Allen film named Midnight in Paris. He's a Berklee grad. He's traveled all over the world, of course, being born and raised in France and coming over here to the U.S. And he's playing this Wednesday, February 25th, at Rudy's Jazz Room in Nashville. So we talk about that set, but also we have a greater conversation about art, creativity, and how those intertwine with life itself. I'm so excited, so inspired by this conversation, and I think you will be too. Here it is, without further ado. I ask every guest to the show 3 standard questions. Feel free to have fun with these. Answer however you'd like. Those 3 questions are, who are you? What are your passions, and why on earth would you want to come on the Quinn Spinn?
Wow, who are you? So, technically, my name is Stéphane Wrembel, and I'm a musician, and I play the guitar, and I compose. I compose for Woody Allen. I compose for my own music, for my own albums and stuff like that. I spend my time touring and teaching. I love teaching private lessons only. I organize a festival every year called Django Go, where I bring like the greatest players from Europe, and it's like the biggest Django festival in America every year. So that's for the outer, who are you? The inner is like a more complex question, because now we're starting to enter like Plato, you enter know yourself and you know the cosmos and the gods, which is the whole goal of a lifetime is to know oneself. So now we are plunging into Plato and all that.
Right on. And so joining us here on the show, very happy to have you, and so excited to learn about your journey and that journey of coming to know yourself, right? And it starts, of course, all the way back in France. Well, of course, you grew up in France, studying music from an early age, and you had so much music around you. Of course, you grew up in Fontainebleau, which is, the home of Django Reinhardt himself, and took a classical approach at first, learning piano at an early age. And so what I want to know is how those early experiences and the people and the places around you inspired you and got you on this creative path.
Well, it's always a combination of like what is innate and what is the environment, what we learn. Everything is always a combination of all that, So not only it's an environment, being like growing up in France, but it's also it's a time and a place. So it's also, I was born in 1974. So I spent my childhood basically in the late 70s and 80s. So it was a specific time frame in a specific place with like specific things happening. And my mom, she always insisted that we take piano lessons. She said that music is part of education, so you got to do music. And when I was 4 years old, I started taking piano lessons with a woman named Mademoiselle Lecomte. She was like the main piano teacher around. And she was part of the Nadia Boulanger group. Nadia Boulanger being like the greatest music teacher in the 20th century. And she was in Fontainebleau. She was doing a program in Fontainebleau. So there's the same group of people. So I learned from those people that were like born in the late 19th century, you know. So completely different vibe. Those old ladies with like such incredible level of musicianship. They
Hmm.
didn't love music the same as we do now. It was a different thing, you know. It was just different. I don't know how to explain. And so it had a huge impact on me as a child to be
Hmm.
around these people, to be in that very classical environment. And my lessons were in that beautiful apartment with like molded things everywhere, you know, molded sculptures, the grand piano, and it was facing the Fontainebleau Castle, which is the home of the kings. So when I would take my lessons, especially in the winter, at night there would be like the castle illuminated in the background with the classical piano and the presence of all these charts everywhere, piles of charts, and Chopin and Mozart and Debussy and Ravel and all that, you know.
Hmm.
So that had a huge impact in terms of the music because I heard a lot of like the classical harmonies by playing them. You know, that stuff gets ingrained in your ear. And also the visual environment I was with it. So it was very specific thing, you know. And you know, back then we didn't have any screens or anything. So it was just like everything was silent and everything was music in silence. It was like very profound and deep. And that's a huge impact on my whole life as a musician.
Hmm. And of course, you touched on this, how things have changed, especially over the past few decades. Technology, of course, becoming more and more entrenched, in every aspect of our lives. And of course, that carries into the music industry. How have you kept things organic in the face of all of the rise of AI, the rise of music tech? Like, how have you kept it centered on the musicianship throughout your career?
Can you reshape that question? I'm trying to like,
Yeah, yeah. So, of course, as things have evolved in the musical landscape and the creative landscape, tech has obviously had a huge presence in how people even make music. And of course, you classically trained, getting the opportunity to learn from all of these amazing classically trained musicians, there's a certain like organic nature to that, right? And so how has that persisted, in the face of the rise of all this technology? And, everything that is quote unquote modernized the industry, how have you kept things organic and focused on the musicianship throughout your career?
okay, yeah, that brings the question. Sorry, I had you repeat so I could like rethink of that question also.
Yeah.
This is very deep here. We're talking about intelligence versus logic.
Hmm.
And these are two different parts of the mind. Logic is the part of the mind that identifies information, analyzes information, classifies an information. It's a tool of clarification of the information and classification. Intelligence in Latin is intelligere, means to tie information. So intelligence is the movement between things. So as we organize our thoughts, we learn new things and we start to classify everything. The intelligence naturally will like start to put things together by itself, you know.
Hmm.
And the problem is our mind has been poisoned by too much logic. And
Hmm.
logic is not life. There's no life in logic. So we think someone is smart, like we say, because someone has done something through logic,
Hmm.
but the logic is full of flaws without intelligence.
Hmm.
And this world is more and less intelligent. And
Hmm.
that's why also we see things are more and more technical. You see more and more people playing super fast, super technical, clean, everything. Like all over the place. You look on internet, there's like virtuosos all over the place. You know, people playing like but there is no expression.
Hmm.
People don't listen. There is no melody, expression, things that I've learned like from playing that classical stuff, you know. You really listen and we are losing our contact with our senses, I think. I
Yeah.
think it's more and more the mind itself, the logic, the mind, the technology, rather than relying on our biological features, you know, like the touch, the ears, the vision, for example, for a musician. You'd be surprised how little we listen and how
Hmm.
difficult it is to listen. To think is easier. Like, for example, someone will improvise, you go to a music school, and they will say, if you play that scale over that chord, you will find melodies. It's like, no, you have to listen.
Hmm.
It's very difficult. You have to start from the chord, and you have to listen to the note of the chord, the note that are around, and train yourself to hear all that, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's a
the more
very
you listen, the better you hear, and the better you hear, the more you listen. So
yeah.
it's like an act to listen that is not taught, and that has to do with concentration and a calm mind. And it's a completely different zone of the mind than just overthinking everything and trying to be as fast as possible.
That's an inspiring thought just in a general life sense too, because I think what logic depends on is everything to go right, right? Logic depends on a system and like a step-by-step process to follow. And when that process isn't followed, it can fall off the rails, right? Whereas intelligence requires a certain cunning and a certain nuance, right? Like, okay, something isn't perfect. How do I shape it to fit into the flow of everything I'm doing? And I think there's something to be said, of course, as a musician, especially in a genre like jazz, where, you're finding, where you are kind of within the context of the greater work being presented, and you're able to fit your way into that and rely on your intelligence, your intuition, your natural ability and gift to really shape the sound, and shape your part in it. Whereas with logic, it's, formulaic a lot of the time. And we see that, I think, too, just in any area of life, like I said, where, we try to just follow step by step by step. And then when it doesn't work, we wonder why it's not working. And we don't have an answer because we haven't relied on that intellect, that intuition that guides us in our natural abilities, to navigate situations.
Yeah. So exactly, we try to make everything a system, systemize everything. You
Hmm.
can't systemize everything. To a certain extent, you can. You can say, okay, we're going to build a house with a certain structure for the house to like stand. So you study that, but then after you can have like any house from
Hmm.
that. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like yeah, and you see that sickness of the mind, like with the all those towers, those squares like that, those big squares, and then you
Hmm.
see those big buildings like Project Light, or not even, like those like every building is the same next to the other, no imagination, no beauty, no sense of decorating something. And that's the work of logic, it's like pure logic and systematization. And we see the same thing in music. You go to a music school, they try to make you believe that there is an end game to it. Like, okay, this is what it is. What is what? What are you talking about? You're talking about the swing. There is not two people in the world that swing the same.
Hmm.
So you have to talk about the swing as an archetype. It's an invisible archetype. So you have to be in contact with the archetype, but you're also a unique human being. So you're going to express that archetype in a very imperfect way,
Hmm.
but that's the poetry of it. So there is not like the swing. No one is playing the swing. We suggest the swing with our own personality. So every time it's a different angle. And everything seems to be like that to me in the world. There is a part of a system, of course, but there is also a part of something random and fluid, you know what I mean, that we also should preserve, and it's not preserved because you can ensnare yourself in too much logic and too much system. You ensnare yourself, and then you have no room to express yourself and to live as a human being. Um, you can see it in uh, yeah, in like the fact that people try to make you believe, like jazz, for example. What is jazz? Jazz is an archetypal frame that was born in the late 19th century in New Orleans.
Hmm.
So you feel that frame, you express that frame, but you're never going to have that frame itself. It's always a representation. And for someone who received the music, they're also going to have their own representation of what they hear.
Hmm.
Everything is transformed like every time like that. So it's a very fluid thing. But the danger is to ensnare ourselves in systems.
Hmm. Hmm. It's the subjectivity of art, right? Like art is subjective and it's nuanced based on the creation and the person creating it, right? And when we like do our branding workshops, for example, because I work with artists on their branding, it's we're not creating a brand. We're not trying to like package something up into this neat little thing that that was decided for you. It comes from within. And that's, I think, anything creative, like for it to be genuine, for it to be as overused as the word authentic is, for it to be authentic and to really land with the people that it's meant to land with, like it has to come from you. And you have to give yourself that room to be human in that process, right? And I think with, again, there's so much like focus in the music world, in the business world in general on optimization. And what you're finding, the more and more optimized things get, the more we as creatives, we as artists are craving this return to what made us produce art in the first place. And it was community, it was humanity, it was shared experiences, it was how we frame these things based on our own individual experiences and present them and tell that story as only we can. And that's the beauty of jazz, right? Is yes, like there's a framework as far as like, what is jazz, but then it can be from there, whatever you create, and you can get super experimental, you can be super innovative and improvisational, and really, like the art of jazz and the skill of a great jazz musician is to really be able to bring those ideas back around and have them make sense within the greater picture of it all, right? And but doing it in your own way and doing it from a place of self-expression, like that is truly the way to connect. And that's also the art that connects with us is real, is something that can't be manufactured. It came from a real person's experience. And, we interpret that experience subjectively as we will.
So yeah, now you're entering the zone of what is art, you
Hmm.
know, and this is what we were talking about. In something systematic, like we search for systems in the universe. We try to understand the laws of physics and stuff like that. And this is the grammar of the universe.
Hmm.
And that's good because from that you can like know how to like fuel an airplane like, or a car, create mechanics, and how do we go to the stars and stuff like that. Like even like having internet and things with waves and this and that. I don't know. Like we're trying to find systems like that. That's the grammar. But
Hmm.
then there is also the poetry. There's the story. We still experience life. So we experience life in a certain setting, but the setting is not life. It's still just a setting. It's still just grammar. And so that brings us to art and science. What is the difference? Because in everything there is a bit of art and a bit of science. If you look at the etymology of the word art, it comes from the Latin ars, meaning the possession of a technique, the possession um, of a gesture. So that's the art. The art is not how I express myself. The art is the possession of the technique. In Greek, in ancient Greek, art is technique, which gave birth to the word technique. So the art is the technique, the art of the guitar.
Hmm.
Like the technique, you are like trying to latch yourself with the technique of the guitar, you know what I mean? So an art form is the contact between a person. See, between you and the music, there is
Hmm.
an instrument, and you try to develop a bridge to the music and yourself through that instrument. So that's why you have like the technique, the technique, which is like muscle memory and all that.
Hmm.
And then you also have the grammar. What is music made of? Harmony, rhythm. So you study harmony, rhythm. It's very general. An A minor is an A minor. Now, if you have an A minor in Brazilian music, if you have someone in Sao Paulo playing that A minor, it's going to play it a certain way, expressing like where he lives. In Ireland, someone is going to play it on the fiddle, expressing where they live.
Hmm.
Blues guy in Mississippi is going to like play it like that in the way he lives. You go to Mali, they're going to play an A minor different on the kora, and every time it's still A minor. So there is definitely a system. There is harmony and there is rhythm
Hmm.
for sure. So that's the science part of music. But you see
Hmm.
how neutral it is, and that's what we call classic. Classic is the study of those systems. And after that, the art is like the bridge between the musician. Now it's a personal thing. It's the body, it's the hands, it's the ears, it's the eye. You know what I mean? The touch. That's the connection.
Hmm.
And every human being is different. So we have the innate, and we are born in a certain time, in a certain place. with a certain family around certain people. And so that's that combination of all that that makes you reach music and express something, whatever that is.
Hmm.
I like to be a man of my time. So, for example, I have a band named Django New Orleans
Hmm.
where I mixed the Django sound and the New Orleans sound together.
Hmm.
But it's more than that. Like every one of us, we're not trying to recreate the past.
Mm.
We're trying to connect with the archetype of jazz, with the swing, but we play in a modern way. We have modern instruments, modern amps. We've heard Jimi Hendrix. We've heard John Coltrane. We've heard Pink Floyd. You know, we've heard The Cure. We've heard Depeche Mode. We heard like even like we heard like hip hop. We heard like now because of internet music from all over the world. We're familiar with Indian music, with all sorts of African music, North African, the oud, Turkish music, Brazilian music. You cannot not know what you know. You cannot not hear what you've heard. So all that, everything that you listen to, everything that is there is a part of yourself.
Hmm.
So when we play, for example, it's always the sounds of now. It's us now with whatever was on our path. You know, so it's every time a unique journey, a unique path, a unique chemistry between unique individuals. So every time it's a unique thing, and you play a concert, it's a unique concert. It never happened before. It will never happen again after.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah. And there's something magical about that moment, and that's what creates the moments that we remember, whether we're the ones performing those moments, whether we're in the audience. It's that fact that you're experiencing something live in person in front of you that has never happened before, will never happen again in quite the same way. And you could try to replicate it. You could try to replicate it, but it never quite lands in exactly the same way. And that's the exciting part about, I think, live performance. And like, even for me, like I'm diving more into singing now. And when I do that, like, the more comfortable I get with the song, the more I can play with that song. Right. And, different things that I find in there that might be different from the time before. And it's like, okay, how do I build on that idea? Not try to replicate it, not try too hard to go like to that exact place again, because you can never go quite to that exact place, but how can I take these ideas and continue to shape how I tell this story? How can I continue to shape how I'm communicating with the audience, and what meaning does that give me, that I attach to this song, that I attach to this moment, and how can I use that to create a stronger connection? And it's just a powerful way to create that lasting rapport, that lasting connection with your audience once you're able to find those nuances within performance and make them your own, right? And bring something to light that, yes, it might be rooted in these classical traditions, it might be rooted in these standards, these things that have already existed, but you've given them new life through the way that you present them.
Yeah, and all that is done instinctively. You know, that's why you practice something, you have the control of the instrument, so you can let the instinct take care of it.
Hmm.
You cannot have the logic in it. You cannot have any control. You have to let go of control and just like let go whatever is natural. And
Hmm.
trust nature and trust biology and trust yourself and trust your instinct.
Yeah. Yeah. Where it's funny because where I see that actually play out is like when I go to karaoke because like you could tell when somebody's up there and they're super nervous and they're hanging on to it and they're just trying to either get through it or get it right. And you could tell when somebody just goes up there and they're just like, you know what, it is what it is. And I think you see that, at every level of performance, right? The artist who is comfortable letting that process breathe and letting that process speak for itself in that moment, like that to me always tends to be the more engaging performer because they're not so in their head. They're not wrapped up in that logic. They're in the moment, they're experiencing it along with you, right? And when you have this ensemble of other players with you, and you're all in that moment and you're all like contributing to that moment in different ways, it just creates something, so unique and like that. That sense of like you can't replicate this exact moment becomes, I think, even more pronounced, right? And it makes it even more special to know that you've shared that alongside other musicians and you've had a chance, of course, to play with some of the best, of course, on the record and also, touring live. And so what do the different players that uh you've assembled in this all-star ensemble, say on the album, for example, like what have they brought to uh the project, and overall, how have they helped influence you as a performer?
So my way of leading a band is to carefully choose the people. So I know like what instruments I really want,
Hmm.
and we play, and if the chemistry is not there, I cannot play with that person. The chemistry has to be right. It's not only like a saxophone, a violin player, a drummer. It's a person with like a certain feeling, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, for example, with my quartet, which is the band that I'm bringing to Nashville, we have two guitars, bass, and drums. We've been playing for like almost 20 years together, you know. We're super tight, you know. We know each other inside out, you know. So
Hmm.
when I bring a new song, I do a demo, I bring the song, and we start playing it. And maybe the bass player is going to do something that I didn't think of because he's a bass player and he is himself, and he will find a way to do something. And maybe the drummer will like change the groove a little bit. So he will listen to the basic groove that I put, and to him, it's going to translate in a completely different way than what I imagine.
Hmm.
So, and I tend to like let everything like that fall into place.
Hmm.
Sometimes there are things that I don't really agree with on my songs, but I let them happen because I think that if the guy has felt it like this is where you're going to get the best result.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I work
Yeah.
more on dynamics and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And or if something I really don't like, I can say, can we try something else? Try like this, like that. And we try to find a consensus, you know, between everyone. And maybe everyone's going to say, no, that bit was better. Your bit's less good. Okay, so let's pick the best one.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
completely always open to like changes and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like to enter the studio and record without having rehearsed, you know. We go to the studio, everyone has a demo of the songs, and we craft them in the studio itself. So, for
Hmm.
example, for Django New Orleans, which is another project, you know, it's like a 8-piece band.
Hmm.
We go in the studio and we spend time like playing the song, trying to find the right groove, the right tempo, and right on the spot, like the horns sections, the violin, the vocals, who is doing what. So we work perhaps for like an hour and a half on a song, and we like chew on it, trying to like find all the right parts. And once we have all the right parts, we feel like we got it. We know we got it. Now we just like play it 3 or 4 times through and then move on to the next song, you know, and
Hmm.
we keep the best version.
Yeah.
So everything happened like that, very live, very organic. And for example, when I say to the horn players, let's play like some like pads kind of lines here, you know, with like a dynamic that goes up on those chords. I'm not going to tell them you play the third, you play the fifth. They know what they're doing.
Hmm.
They are horn players. They play in like a million horn section. They know better than me exactly what they need to play, you know. So I
Hmm.
suggest an idea, and they will materialize it, knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a strong trait of leadership too, is like knowing what your people are good at, right? And letting them run with that, as somebody who's building a team myself, like, I have to know when to get out of the way, right? And like I think it helps to have a good, healthy understanding of what good is, in all these different areas, right? But ultimately, like, you know, the people who excel at this task or that task, like, okay, you run with that task because you're way better at it than me. I'd say that to my video editor all the time. I'm like, you are a better editor than me. You're faster than me. So you know what? You have at it. And it's the same thing. It's like when you're in this ensemble, when you've put together this ensemble, like, you're with other trained professionals, who've been doing this for years, even decades, and they know their instrument and they know their craft and they know how to fit that craft into the greater whole. And I think as a leader, it's a great thing to recognize, like, all right, hey, you know what? They're going to take this and run with it, and they're going to make it better than I could even imagine. And it's going to come back and make something even greater in the end result.
Yeah, you got to trust people. And you know, in the end, you want to present like a good concert for the people and a good album to the people. So you have to have that thing where everyone feels comfortable about what they are doing in the band, you know? So you get
Hmm.
the best result.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do want to touch on the record, Django New Orleans too, because there's a significant milestone on the record. You make your debut as a vocalist on this record, so I want to learn more about that. What made now the right time for you to step into the vocal booth?
This album is very special because it's a friend of mine who produced it.
Hmm.
Send me a list of songs and he said, listen, if you like this song, I take care of the production.
Hmm.
And I really like his ideas. Like there are things that I wouldn't have thought of that I didn't know existed, and there are things that I really already wanted to record. So it felt great as like a song list, you know?
Hmm.
And so two of the songs that he proposed were two of my favorite Serge Gainsbourg songs.
Hmm.
And you know, being French and all, and I know this song since I'm born, basically.
Hmm.
So I was like, I need to sing something. I felt like I should be the one singing them, you know?
Hmm.
Because in Django New Orleans, we also have a singer, Sarah King.
Hmm.
But she's American, so she sings in English. And I was like, I really want to sing these two songs. I can sing a couple of songs, you know?
Hmm.
And that was a great experience. That was like my favorite time in the studio, the best time I've ever had in the studio. Because usually studio is a bit difficult for me. I prefer the concert setting. I love when there's people, we interact, and it's a very Dionysian. The studio is just us, so you have to imagine a crowd and imagine a connection, you know, because songs are not just notes, they are also a connective thing, you know.
Hmm.
So the studio is always very difficult for me. But this time, just singing like that was like a bliss, you know. I felt so great and so relaxed also because I'm not a singer. I'm not
Hmm.
trying to prove anything. I'm not becoming a singer. I'm just singing two French songs that I know very well.
Hmm.
So it felt very comfortable.
Hmm. And then looking at the macro of the entire, project in the context, of course, because part one came out in 2023, and now we have part two last fall. How do you feel that you and the ensemble have evolved in your creative process from the first record in 2023 in the series to the second one?
It evolves. The more concert we play, the
Hmm.
better we play, the more we
Hmm.
feel tight. And it took me a little while to find the team that we have now. I think like we've made progress in even more like with the new sousaphone player, etc. So I think like yeah, we're getting like closer and closer to the core of what we're trying to express.
Hmm.
Actually, we're preparing another album. We need more songs, so we need another album. Then it's gonna really be like a bigger body of work, you know.
Hmm.
I'm gonna sing a couple of songs on the new album also because I get a kick out of it, you know.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so we're in the process of like deciding which songs and stuff. And then after that, we need to book the studio and all and go for it, you know.
Hmm.
So it evolves constantly because also the more we play live, the more we start to know how the other group, how the other respond to this, see like how we tie together on stage, and that it's felt in the studio, you know.
Hmm. 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 As well as on stage. And you're still hitting the road in the process of all of this. And as we mentioned, coming to Nashville this Wednesday as of episode release date to Rudy's Jazz Room. That's February 25th here in Nashville. Of course, there's an emerging jazz scene here in Music City. It's not just country music here, ladies and gentlemen. And in your own words, just want to know what we can expect from the show and how it came together.
Well, first of all, my music is very inspired by Django Reinhardt, so it's very special. This is the same thing when I say the word jazz, I refer to that original archetype. I
Hmm.
don't refer to what we usually call jazz. For
Hmm.
example, I don't want to be called a jazz guitarist. I'm not a
Hmm.
jazz guitarist. I'm just a guitarist, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I happen like sometimes to like tap into the jazz frame or sometimes in the rock frame, sometimes the Django frame, the gypsy frame, the classical frame, the flamenco frame.
Hmm.
So it's a bit of everything. It's very hard. Our music cannot be really defined. It's a journey, you know. It's a dream. You know, you go there and you start dreaming and you embark on a journey, and the concert has a curve. Like a melody has a curve, a phrase has a curve, a song has a curve, and a show has a curve. So we have every time we try to hit the perfect curve, and the
Mhm.
connection with the public. Also, a concert is a place, is a symposium.
Mhm.
We don't know we're like, oh, I don't know. I go to a concert, then I feel great, and oh, you don't know why. Yeah, because it is a symposium. The Greeks had a name for it. They would meet together and drink the wine, get the intoxication of the wine, and call upon themselves Dionysos, raw life, pure life. And then from there, they would start to feel the intoxication of the alcohol, and they had musicians and dancers. So you would like put them in a trance state, and they would like talk about subjects, like for example, the Plato Symposium is about love. What is love? So they are like in a symposium like that. And a concert is the same thing. We are like in a room full of people. We start playing, and we start to reach a certain form of intoxication. You don't need to drink or anything, but the music can create that sort of trance,
Mhm.
and we get into that trance and that dreamy journey, it activates things in us that allows us to touch that dream place. And then for a couple of hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours, we start to dream and be in that journey, and everyone is embarking on their own journey. Everyone is going to have their own sensations, their own vision, and stuff like that. And at the end, when you're done, it's like a cleansing of the mind. That's why you feel like a sort of high. You feel amazing and great. You had a great journey within yourself, and that's what a concert should be for us. It's also like I'm bringing the best players in New York. Like the rhythm section. It's like the best you can find, bass, and bass drums and bass guitar. You cannot find better than that. They're like the most in demand, like drum and bass in New York. They're unbelievable musicians. So that's gonna be a crazy show. It's gonna be amazing.
And it's at Rudy's Jazz Room Wednesday, February 25th, right here in Nashville. Well, Stefan, I want to thank you, of course, for coming on the show. I've got a couple more questions, and the next one's a big one. And it's one I like to ask every guest toward the end of our time together. And I call it the biggest lesson. So think back on your entire creative journey to this point. And if there's one lesson that has been the most important, the most impactful that you've learned throughout your journey that you'd go back and teach yourself starting out, what would that lesson be?
Well, I was right. I was right when I was young to have chosen that crazy difficult path of being a musician instead of like trying to find a stable job and find security. I plunged into I was like, it's life. I'd rather like try to like live my dreams and that's it. And that was a great decision. And also I learned something else. You cannot build a tree. That's always what I tell all my students and everyone. That's the big thing that I learned in life is you cannot build a tree. Things have to grow organically in their own time. And it seems long, but you need to have patience, you know. For example, I think that the hardest thing in music is to have the patience to repeat the same thing again and again and again and again for long periods of time. That's the
Mhm.
hardest thing to go through in music. And then the rest, it's just like you have to know yourself, so you have to know if the path is right for you.
Mhm.
For me, it happened that it was the right choice. Sometimes I see people wanting to be musicians, and I tell them maybe before you spend money in music schools and stuff like that, you want to start to play gigs. See if you can practice 8, 10 hours a day all by yourself at home. Do you have the patience? Do you like to drive for like 8 hours, unload a van, sound check, eat something quick, play a show for 2 hours, sell some merch, then repack everything, then drive to the hotel, go to
Mhm.
bed, and the next day repeat? It's not for
Mhm.
everyone.
Right.
So you have to know yourself and have the patience. To me, it's the most important things, the patience, concentration. Like when I was young, of course, I was a bit impatient, like everyone. That's why you work more and you're like so much energy because you don't have patience. But
Mhm.
as time goes, you're like, okay, I was impatient for these things, but they actually happen to be fine.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. The process is the thing, right? Like it's it's the entire thing. Like the milestones, the accolades, the success that we see outward, it's like not even in the finished product, because there are no finish lines in this. You keep going as long as you want to keep going, right?
Yeah, you
But
keep
like
going
they're,
until you die. One
yeah,
day you're done. One day it stops. So you don't
yeah,
have to do anything. It will stop for you. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But
Well,
there is no end game. There is no eschatological end. There is none of that. But there are zones where you're like more and more, because after you can accumulate information on music and stuff, it doesn't matter.
mhm,
What matters is to reach a certain maturity and to enjoy the dream, you know. So
mhm,
music, for me, music is something that is dreamed, and you like enjoy the drive, enjoy the concert, enjoy every part of it, and accept it for the way it is. You know, you cannot build a tree. It is what it is.
and yeah, yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it. And I think too, like, you have those moments, those affirming moments along the journey, like a great performance or, a song does really well, like you get a great opportunity. And in those moments, like, you're not thinking about, how much was in your bank account at those moments. You don't even remember. Like you don't remember, the particular struggle that you were dealing with that day. You remember that happened. That was awesome. Like, and it's a result of all of this hard work. And it gives you, I think, the fuel to have those moments, to enter those different zones, those different levels. It gives you the fuel to keep going, right? But you still need to be a patient person, or at least develop that patience in order to make this work year over year, decade over decade, as you have, right? And it's something that you don't realize coming in when you first pick up a guitar or first start singing into a microphone. Like, you just think, oh, well, this person that I look up to does this and they were an overnight success, so I'm going to be too. Well, then you learn, if you do this long enough, that overnight success is not a real thing. It doesn't exist. And at that point, well, to your point, like, I think it's wise to dive into the craft of it first before you start committing the resources, before you like take that full dive into, this is what I'm going to do for a living, because it's not for the faint of heart. And as you go, you're going to learn that, like, it's the long game, right? There's no end game, but it's the long game of continuing on that journey, and everything you learn along the way is going to help power you to a greater level of not only competency, but I think fulfillment in the long run.
Yeah, it's a career is like a tree,
Mhm,
or is like a human. Like a tree, if you stop giving it light and water and nutrients, it dies.
mhm,
A human, if you stop eating and drinking and moving, you die. And the same thing with the career. Once it's alive, it needs to be fed constantly. You know, it's a living organism. It's a living thing. You like put new songs, new music, new records, new concerts, new fans, new everything, and it's constantly like changing and moving, and it's alive. It's a organic, you know.
mhm, mhm,
And it's like there is no two trees the same. There is no two music careers the same. Every music career is different. So that's why when you're like, I'm gonna be a musician, it means nothing. It means, okay, so embark on that journey and just like stick to it.
mhm,
And you have people who stop. They
mhm,
start getting jobs, they play less and less gig, and the career dies because it's not
mhm.
fed anymore.
Right, right.
No, it's
Yeah.
another part that's fed. It's like a job part that is fed while the
Mhm,
career has died. You know what I mean?
mhm. Yeah. And I think, like, you see that, not everybody who starts this journey finishes it, right? Or, stays on it, for to the point where they really start seeing the success that they originally set out for. Life takes them in different directions, or and you do have people too that I think, do get burned out, do get frustrated, lose patience with it, right?
It's difficult.
And we've all had those moments. We've all had those moments, I'm sure, where we, think maybe I should go do something else, right? And we all deal with, I think, the self-doubt and like the realities of the journey. It's not always glamorous. As a matter of fact, most of the time it's not, right? And I'm curious to know how you've pushed past any moments of doubt or inner resistance that you've encountered along
Well,
your
I have to
journey.
give credit to my dad also for that
Hmm.
because I became a professional musician, I was 19.
Hmm.
I got an apartment and all. And but right before I got my high school diploma,
Hmm.
my dad knew that I will not go to a university and go to a regular job. There was already shot. That whole idea,
Mm-hmm.
since I was a kid, was shot. I am
Mm-hmm.
not going to do a job. I cannot
Mm-hmm.
go. That's it. I have to
Mm-hmm.
be an artist. So then he was like, okay, and he's an engineer, so he's like very like
Mm-hmm.
square. It's like, listen, I would like to help you, but I don't know how because I don't know what it is to be a musician. Can you tell me what it is to be a musician? How are you going to pay for your bills? How are you going to pay for your rent? How are you going to pay for your car? How are you going to put food on the table? Where does the money come from? How much money? Where? How does it work? I don't know. So I cannot help you. I need you to tell me to help me. So he pushed me to like sit down, write on paper what it is to be a musician. I was like, okay, what can you do? You can play gigs, be a band leader, be a sideman, work in studio, teach, teach private lesson, teach in a university, be a like I tried to find like everything that's possible, and that forced me to look into that, you know. And at that time, at 19, I got a couple of like side jobs with a friend, like you know those like missions that last for like a week or two, and you do like a little job, like
Yep.
we worked on like making a supermarket like look better at night and stuff like that. We organize it and then I worked for like a couple of weeks in a thing where you put like books in boxes and tie the boxes, put them in a truck or something like that. And I was like, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing that. I'm not doing a job. As a matter of fact, I was like working at a factory. The last time I went, it was a 2 day job or 3 day job. They were like organization of bags. They were like badly calibrated. The paint would fall all over. So you had to put the bad bags on one side and the good bags on the other. They
Mm-hmm.
like huge piles of bags. I was like, all right. So I was taking that bag, the other bag. I was at the end of the factory, you know, and I was like listening to music. And the guy comes, he's like, you cannot listen to music when you work. I'm just like, dude, I'm just putting one bag here, one bag there. I'm all alone here. It's not making me do my job. He's like, no, you can't do that. And he left. So I put back my music on. And then he comes back and he says, I told you you can't listen to music. I said, look, you see this bag? That's the good bag with the thing here. And this is the bad bag with the thing is there. So now you can do it yourself. I'm out of here. And I just left. You know, I say, you finish that job.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so anyway, that was the last time I did like a job like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was not for me, but then I came back home and I was like, okay, I'm done. First thing, I'm going to start teaching because I love teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I always love teaching guitar. And I was like, okay, so I created a little non-profit, which is very easy in France. So you get a number so you can, like a DBA or something like that.
Yeah.
And I printed 5,000 flyers and I went all over the neighboring town to put them everywhere. I got
Mm-hmm.
20 students. I got a studio in Fontainebleau in my town and I started teaching like that. And then I started funding gigs. And at that time, I was like, starting to study Django's music and there was no one playing that. So I started to like find gigs, like two guitars, playing that stuff everywhere and all and building it. And then I bought a house. My school got bigger. It's still there now. There's like all kinds of like drum lessons and vocal lessons, group lessons, and guitar and bass and all that. And so I built that school. That was like one of the things that I did at that time. You know what I mean? But I
Mm-hmm.
always try to find like when things are when for example, if I'm like, how am I gonna pay my bills? You know, I find a solution in the music world. Either I try to find more students, find more gigs, I do something, but it's always music. I'd rather go in the subway and play in the subway, and it's still music than trying to find a job on the side with a
Mm-hmm.
paycheck. I will
Mm-hmm.
never,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But now I don't need to do. I'm not thinking like that anymore at all because
Yeah.
I'm not in that position. But
Mm-hmm.
I always went for that. Like when I first arrived in Boston, I started playing in the streets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would make like a lot of money, so I could like pay for my rent and stuff. People love that Django thing. I got a couple of regular gigs and stuff. I was sustaining myself, you know, very quickly. When I
Yeah.
arrived in New York, I found gigs. I had 9 gigs a week,
Mm-hmm.
and there was not career gigs. They were like feeding gigs, so I could play music
Mm-hmm.
every day and
Mm-hmm.
still make enough to pay for my rent and stuff, and start to build up like touring history, composition, you know, working for movies
Mm-hmm.
and starting to like save money to go on the road, lose money on the road because you always do in the beginning.
Yep.
So, creating a tour history, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
You need that. You need to build something. So,
Yeah.
but always while playing music. I've never done another job,
Hmm.
and
You
I
need to
think
build something.
that's one of the keys for that. And that's my dad telling me how are you gonna do it.
Hmm.
So he teach me to always like think like that,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that
Yeah.
was a very great thing that he did for me.
Yeah. And yeah, figuring out what that process looks like and also being willing to bet on yourself and say, this is what I'm doing. So I'm going to figure this thing out. It's a courageous step. And I think too, it's a step a lot of people are afraid to take, right? Because they've been told all their lives there's no money in this, like they've just let the opinions of other people sink in and affect how they think about their passion and their craft and what they want to do. But you have to dive into that process. You have to bet on yourself and become obsessed with it because that's the way that it is going to materialize from nothing, from just an idea into something that takes you to wherever you want to go.
But
Whether that's
it's your life. It's
hmm
every day you wake up. It's your life. It's the art of life.
hmm
It's your art of life. You look at the movie by David Lynch, The Art of Life.
mm,
His art of life was his, but it was a journey. If you look at like my life is a big journey. I'm passionate. It's amazing. Like every day, whether it's hard or not, but I just love it. I love to be constantly on the road and doing things and all. And then I see my family and then I practice and I have my students. I organize my festival and produce an album. And it's always like alive. And there is so many stories, so many like for the past. I've been in the music business for 33 years now.
hmm
So for the 33 years, it's been like so many stories, so many things have happened. It's kind of crazy. And
hmm
that's a very rich life for me. And I
hmm
think you're right. Like the problem is fear. Fear is not part of life. You know, there are two things that are part of life is truth and love, and that's it. These are the true things. So you look for a truth and you look for love, and you will find they are together. The rest, fear, anxiety, anger, all that's not real. It's just a reaction to the environment. And if you respond to that, whenever I do respond to that all the time, I'm like everyone else. I'm not giving anyone a lesson. But when you respond to that, usually the answer is negative. Like something negative is going to happen. And sometimes I have fear, like about my career, I have doubts and stuff. And then I brush them off. I'm just like, no, you got to trust. You got to trust life. You know what I mean? And love and truth. And keep
hmm
trucking. Things are going to be fine. And they're always fine. I
hmm
always let the universe take care of it, and I always fine. You know what I mean? Because then you don't resist and you navigate with it. You try to be not irresponsible, and things are fine.
Yeah, yeah, no, that resonates with me. I go back to Pennsylvania every August and I work Music Fest, which is the largest free music festival in the country. And fun fact, I'm actually the head of security on the more open and chaotic side of that festival. And our departmental tagline, since I started going back to work that festival a few years ago, has become, "We'll figure it out. We always do." And what I found is that is just such a good tagline just for life because life's always going to throw you things, right? It's always going to give you the unexpected things you hadn't planned on or necessarily prepared for. And it's up to you to figure out like how you're going to navigate that moment, right? And I find it's helpful sometimes to have those moments of doubt, to kind of get in the mud to remember how you get out of it, right? Like it helps build that resilience in you to like have a moment of doubt, have a moment, where you're questioning things, where you're maybe a little fearful of things. And then you say, "Oh, I've been here before. I figured this out. So why don't I take that and apply it over here?" And we're human, right? We're always going to experience those lows, but I think the key is not getting too high, too low, and trusting yourself to figure things out because ultimately it's up to you, right? It's up to you whether you want to do this, whether you don't, whether you want to keep going or you don't, whether you're going to let that moment, that temporary feeling get the better of you or not.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Things have a tendency to kind of repeat themselves in a different way.
Hmm.
So it looks like it's different, but it's the same thing. And
Hmm.
it always turns out okay.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fine. So you learn that. You learn,
Mhm.
yeah, you learn to trust, and you learn that you're always gonna manage to be well. I don't know, without fear. And that's you see how when you have anxiety and fear, how what tools do you have to reject that and go back to that place of trust in life and truth and love and all that, and having a Zen, calm mind. How
Mhm.
do you do that? And there are tools, there are ways of looking at things, and like you said, like you deja vu, okay, I know that's always like that. Breathe in, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And try to look at things like instead of like on concentrate in one point, large.
Mhm.
They always say you gotta be in the present. Yeah, but sometimes you also gotta look at the past, at the future. You gotta be like flying. I like
Mhm.
that flying high.
Yeah.
And being in the same time in the past, in the same time in the present, in the same time in the future, having plans. You know what I mean? Like making sure like you can always anticipate things.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
That thing of like being the present sounds to me a little bit like Epimetheus, Prometheus' brother. So
Mhm.
Prometheus is the one who anticipates, and
Mhm.
Epimetheus is the one who just goes along as things arrive. So if you focus too much on what's now, you don't see that next week there is a good thing. You're like, oh my God, this is terrible right now. Yeah, but in a week or two, there's all these good things. So
Mhm.
just breathe. Those good things are coming. Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
And then you learn to not panic.
Mhm. Mhm. And you find balance in that process, and you're able to see the big picture. I really love The Art of Life, by the way. That might be the title of this episode because I think it ties a nice bow on everything. Um,
Well, if you put the art of life and David Lynch in the picture, then we're in good shape.
there we go. There we go. Stefan, this has been tremendous. I wish we had more time. Feel like we could go on all day. But thank you for coming on again. And before I let you go, just want to give people a chance to know where they can learn more about you online.
Well, there's, of course, all the social media tools, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and my website. My
Mhm.
website is the most central place. It's stephanewrembel.com. STEPHANEWREMBEL.com.
All right, so there you have it. I want to thank Stefan for coming on the show today. Such an inspiring conversation about art and how it informs life, and vice versa. This is going to be one that we go back and watch here or listen to for many years to come. This is an all timer right here. So thanks to Stefan for coming on. And if you are in Nashville this Wednesday, February 25th, 2026, he's performing at Rudy's Jazz Room, as you heard. Starts at 6 p.m. Make sure you get your tickets. And this has been the Quinn Spin, two N's in Quinn, two N's in Spin. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Also on the socials at Quinn Spin Official or Facebook, the Quinn Spin, the original underground music collective social media channel, still alive and kicking all these years later. Speaking of Underground Music Collective, that's our central hub for all things independent music, creativity, community, and more. UMCworldwide.com. UMC Worldwide on most of the socials. I think I might have still forgotten to change over TikTok, so I think that's still UMC Nashville. But whatever. Become an underdog at umcworldwide.com/join. If you are an underdog based in Nashville, we invite you also to apply for free to the Music Business Accelerator cohort taking place here this spring. Of course, this offered in partnership with our friends at the A&R Foundation based out of Austin, Texas. They are piloting this in Nashville with the underdog. So it's an underdog exclusive, excuse me. So make sure that you sign up to become an underdog and then you get to enroll in this amazing program that's going to help you understand all the steps you need to take, not only as an artist, but as an artistpreneur. Rebel Nine's all to come. Gonna take us out. Blanket brought us in. Grab some muffins. Off the
I'm alive.